guys, it's your girl Kizzy Rock. And yes, Kizzy Rock is my birth given name. Happy Sunday morning. Want to say hey to all my subscribers, new as well as seasoned. I got a word for you. Tap in. Happy Sunday, guys. So I want to talk to you guys about delayed but not denied. Delayed but not denied. Also, I want to speak about piggybacking off of maybe the last couple of recordings in regards to this last pruning before major breakthrough, and how God is showing you your Judas and what's the purpose, some purposes of why he's bringing it to you now. So let's start with the Judases, since that's this is going to be kind of quick, I think. So many of you chosen ones, you know that all of your life that you felt different. You know that all of your life you didn't have that safe place with a lot of people, right? You may have had your family, and for some even not. You didn't even feel safe there, but you may have had your family. You may have had a couple of people that you could have really trusted or feel safe around all throughout your life. Where the average person has a lot of people, right? So you're kind of like, why do I only have one or two or three people that I all of my life? But you got normal people, and they have tons and tons and tons of people. They love being around people. Like, they just always have this, because God always knew that your destiny would be great. So you just weren't ordained to have a lot of people in your life. In fact, this is why if you even had 3 or 4, 2 may not even receive the full you, meaning there was always a conviction in your spirit to kind of still hold back. Because you have people, a lot of people, probably the majority, where everybody in their life experience the full. 100% them. Well, with chosen people, you may only have 1 or 2 people like that. That can look like a best friend from childhood. That can look like a spouse. That can look like a mother or a father. But there's not a lot. It's a very limited amount. Come on, coffee, kick in. Of people who have ever received or seen the full you. And when I say full you, I mean all of you. You were always designed to be very different. And that doesn't mean you didn't love the people. That doesn't mean you didn't trust them. But there was always some kind of block or conviction in your spirit. You may have not been able to articulate that it was a conviction, but there's like a block in your spirit where God just kept you guarded. Because he knew how he would be using you later on. And so even though you may have felt outcasted or felt weird or this or that, it was all designed for this time, right now. See, the people that you couldn't understand, well, why am I so set apart? But these people got 50 people, have all these friends and all this that they can rely and depend on. That was never even, that is so surface level. That's so surface level. Remember, you're so set apart for a higher calling. They're doing things at the surface level, which is absolutely fine. Maybe you even wish you can do things at a certain surface level because it's not as hard. So you can't compare your life. That's apples and oranges. You can't compare your life to other people's life. You are so set apart. You are chosen, right? You answered the call. So you're in a very small percentage of people. So this is why you never felt like you fit in. This is why you never felt like you had all these people you can trust. The crazy part about it is everybody can trust you. But you don't have a lot of people who can really grasp you 100%, who can even handle all of you 100%. So God was preparing you for right now. So because things are zooming in, and the time is here, the time is now, a couple of them were your Judas. And you know who it is. So God is exposing them now, as much as it hurt that maybe that man or that woman who you fell in love with in the last season, God is showing you who they really are. It hurts. This is why maybe a person that you concocted, who would be your potential kingdom wife or kingdom husband or kingdom partner, why God is really showing you truth in your face now. Stay tuned about the kingdom partnerships. That's going to follow up under my next topic of delay but not denial. That's why God is showing some of you friendships that have lasted for quite some time. He's opening your eyes and you're down like, how did I miss this? This person was a manipulator. This person was controlling. This person was selfish. This person never was reciprocal. And it's like in your face, but you're holding on to the offense instead of understanding that it had to happen. You are literally at the gate and God is protecting you. See, he's showing it to you now, because if you continue to miss it, you would have carried them. And now that God have opened the door and blessed you in a way that's going to knock your socks off, you can't be betrayed at that level. You got too much to lose. Your destiny is on the line. So he has to show it to you now. So I understand reading on your emails how hurt you are and how brokenhearted you are, because either you thought a person would go, or maybe because you thought you could have, I don't know, forced God to fit this person into the narrative of your, it's just, you can't, it's just not going to work. Just not going to work. This thing is deep. And you realize the higher you go, you realize that time is really closing in. It's more deeper than you thought. See, when we were younger, we heard things about, oh, we're living in the last days. We heard that stuff from our grannies and and you know, I mean, they were on to something, of course. The truth of the matter is, we can't deny that we didn't see things lining up in the physical things that are going on now. How it, like, it's mind blowing on how the things that's going on now in the world are things that proves we are really in the last days. And maybe our grannies and great, maybe they saw something then, and there could have been things that were going on then that they saw. Our spiritual eyes weren't open, right? We were kids. But we are in the last days. And so one thing that God had been sharing with me is that, to share with you guys, because if I'm honest, I mean, I won't say I got this packed down, but I've had this full revelation and very much in alignment with it for some time. But for some of you, you're going to have to ask God to give you wisdom and insight to understand that whatever he has promised you, let that be a spouse, let that be a kingdom partner, kingdom wife, kingdom husband, wealth, a business, ministry, whatever it is that God has promised you, you're going to have to ask God to give you grace, insight, and wisdom on how to get in alignment so you can see it the way he needs you to see it, right? So that looks like in the physical realm, natural realm, that you got to download, and God said you would be the first millionaire in your family. You got that long time ago. And so you always held on to that. So you held on to it, but the mindset have always been, God said I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family because he doesn't want me to struggle like the last generation did. It's just looks good. It looks good on paper. It sounds good. I'm the first millionaire in my family, right? You're locked in on that, which is great. But God may make you the first millionaire, but it's not for what you think. It is to get you out of generational bondage and things like that, right? Change that mindset, things like that. But it's for purpose. You are the first millionaire, but You have the wrong insight. It's not about buying each one of your family members a house. You can't do that with $1 million anyway, but buying each one of your family members a house so y'all can never struggle again, right? I'm going to take care of y'all in the process. Don't get it twisted. But I need you to purchase a farm, because I need you to feed my peoples when these what do you call it, when things start drying up in the store, when famine comes. And see, this is why you got to be sure you're so aligned with purpose, because if you can't receive the right insight, you're not going to be blessed. See, many of us are still on hold because we have the wrong insight. And it's not that that's a bad thing. That's just a us thing, because sometimes we're not disciplined enough to tap in so God can get to us the correct revelation about what he needs. So maybe you didn't hear the correct revelation in the past, because you were too distracted, life be life, and you were too distracted so God couldn't get it to you. Or maybe you just weren't spiritually inclined or aware enough yet to receive it. So God had to kind of give you pieces by pieces, because maybe you would think, well, hold up. I'm not about to be sitting here with no farm to bless other people. I had to bless people all my life. I thought the $1 million where I can just retire and just not be bothered with people, right? So that mindset is going to keep God from being able to give you the blessing. He just told you you'll be the first millionaire. He didn't tell you can retire. You said you wanted to retire. So you see how we have to make sure we're getting the correct insight. And we may just be on a pause because we don't have the correct insight. Because personally, now that I'm allowing the insight, now see, the promise is that doesn't change. But again, God's not good on giving details sometimes, right? I'm sorry. God is great on giving details, but not directions. So some of us may be stuck because we don't have the right direction. Now me, when I finally made a conscious decision to say, you know what, I release it. And when I say fully, I mean fully. But hear me, that takes spinning your wheels one too many times. So be gentle with yourself. Be kind to yourself if you're not there. A time will get there. A time will come to you when you listen. You will literally release it, and I mean never look back. But that will be a process. When you get to that point, that is when God can give you certain insights. So now that I'm fluid enough to allow him to help me with the directions, and even though it may not look that way, but he can do what he chooses, that's when you will see God starts to pick up the pace. Those of you who are here, this is why you're now starting to see the desire come back for the promise. It's because now you've allowed God to give you the correct insight and you're not so stiff-necked. Is that what it is? Stiff-necked and stubborn? So that's going to actually tie in also with the delayed but not denied. But really quickly, I want to say to those of you who are experiencing offenses, right? And this can tie in, I guess, with the people that God is removing from your life now before elevation or before open doors. Be very careful. And this is to everybody. Be very careful that the enemy is not using you to offend somebody. See, this is dangerous territory, because if the enemy is using you to offend somebody, and that person's mind is kind of toiling, you're really pulling them away, and they're responsible too, of course, right, to rebuke and get back tapped in. But their mind is toiling at a time that God really needs them to be focused on the information he's trying to get to them. So this is why it's easy for him to allow something to happen where he allows that person to cut you off because you did something one too many times. Be very careful, because you could be interfering with something that God needs right now. Also be very, very careful, because the enemy will get into your head. And let me just tell you, he's doing this a lot. Your job is to pay attention to the conviction, right? He'll drop something in your head about a person, right? Make you want to look at a person's eye. And you might want to text, or you might want to email back, or you might want to, something that happened 3 weeks ago, and he's bringing that thing back up to your mind, and right? And you go to listen, just The objective right now for the enemy, when it comes down to using people, and the people are not tapped in enough and wise enough to know, I'm not even going to respond on or act on that thing, is because the enemy is causing you to offend the very people who are your destiny helper. These people were literally your destiny helper. That can look like when they got where they were going, they would come back and get you, or they will open doors for you because they got more power and access now on higher levels. But you took bait and you are allowing the enemy to get into your head and play with you all kind of way. And you're feeding into that. Now you're sending somebody some old fool up email or some old fool up text message or some old fool up third party conversations. And you're offending the people who are literally, who was your destiny helper. To those of you who are being offended, you yourself have also offended. So ask God to literally cleanse your heart of people who have offended you, as well as forgive you for when you have offended people. Right now, your spirit has to be so clear, like a clear ice cube. You can't have any kind of iniquities or offenses right now. I mean, no time, but listen, life be life and we're humans. But right now, your spirit got to be so pure, because you got to get the correct insight. God is giving out so much information, but there's only a small amount of people who are disciplined enough, who are willing to sacrifice enough in order to receive it. You got to shake it off. I don't care what it feels like. I don't care if it feels like a betrayal, about an ungrateful person. I don't care what it feels like. You got to shake it off. You got to just understand, like, okay, take the offense, release it. Take the offense, release it. In last season, you can let that thing sit and ponder in your head all day trying to figure out, well, what did I do? What did I even do? You can sit here and try to think about, but I had your back 20 times. You had mine one. You can sit there and let all that petty stuff and foolishness enter your mind. That is the trick of the enemy, to distract you. Remember, the trick is to distract you. So if he can no longer distract you with porn, whoever that is for you, somebody keep getting hit right there. If he can no longer distract you with porn because you discipline yourself in that area, and he can no longer distract you with counterfeits because God already told you to sit your behind down somewhere and stop with these counterfeits. If he decided to, he knows now that there are certain areas he can't distract you in, because those areas may have been a struggle for you at some point, but throughout the process, God had you fasting against that thing or whatever the case may be. And now it's not that you got it perfected. So please stay on top of it and don't, right? But because remember, the enemy is strategic. So it's not like he's just going to leave you alone, right? He might leave you alone for a second, but that's only to discover how else he can distract you. So now let me throw a Judas in your face, because I can't get you nowhere else. I've attacked your finances. You find a loophole around that, right? I've caused chaos in your household. You find a loophole around that. I've tried to attack your health, right? You're too tapped in. You found a loophole around that, because God is even more strategic. This is why you got to stay tapped in, right? I tried some more witchcraft. Nothing happened. In fact, it went back to them. So let me find another way. So let me throw you a Judas right in your inner circle. He's showing you how they lied. He's showing you all the stuff, because he's trying to save you from taking them to the next level where they can do more damage. But you've got to let him do this right now. More than anything is obedience over emotions. You got to be so disconnected from your emotions right now. And my empath, y'all already know that's difficult, but there's a grace truly that the offenses are not even sticking. You're just now finally saying, you know what? Ciao, bye. God bless you. Seriously. God bless you. And you really mean that. You really mean that from your heart. I wish nothing but the best for you. God bless you. Truly. That's how you know there's a grace going around. Because how many empaths can do that and I'm speaking about people that's very close to you. So that's how you know there's a grace. You got to be so tapped in. So let's talk about delayed but not denied. So many of you, I think that was maybe last month when I made a recording in regards to you feel like this disconnect from the promise. Now, like I was saying earlier too, that's also because God needed to get some insight to you. But this is why a lot of you are being called to be still, let it be through fasting or whatever. Your calls to get more connected in certain areas now is because God is starting to give you the insights. You're starting to receive it, right? He's removed that fairy tale Disney World, right? So you're now realizing like, wow, this is really more about what God needs to be done in this. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What God needs to be done for his will. So, for example, that can look like, okay, I had the wrong insight just thinking that, okay, God's going to send me a kingdom wife and we're just going to move to the countryside and get away from all people because people's crazy, right? People be peopling, right? We're going to move to the countryside and just plant a farm in our backyard, get a couple of horses and cows, and we're going to sit in our back rocking chair until Jesus come home. I mean, that sounds amazing, right? Peaceful, right? But now he's telling you, no. Yeah, I told you, you're going to be a millionaire. I told you you're going to get a farm. I told you I'm going to bring you a kingdom partner, right? I didn't tell you where. You said in that particular countryside. I didn't tell you it's just going to be y'all two and the horses. No. I'm going to put you on some planes, right? I need you to do some missionary work. You and your kingdom partner, right? You may have the gift in this area, but your kingdom partner have the gift of numbers and finances. You may have the gift of organization where you can really like get all the flights and itineraries together because I'm sending y'all from country to country, and your spouse may have that fire of a prayer. Like it's different. The promise is, but it's different. So he promised you all of that, but it's not for you to go and be in your own backyard and just don't help anybody. No, he needs you more than ever now. And truth is, he still may give you that exact thing that just you, your spouse, and the horses and the cows in the backyard in the countryside somewhere, right? Oh, but you ain't gonna be there every day. You might see that house once a month. You got work to do, boo. You and your man, you and your woman, you got work to do, boo. 40 years ago, maybe it could be like that. But right now, we in the last days. Y'all got work to do, period. So because you're allowing the correct insights to come in, now you'll feel slowly but surely that desire is now starting to come back, right? It's not all giddy, right? But you're starting slowly but surely. It's coming back. It's because you're allowing God. Not only are you allowing him to give you the insight, you're on board with the insight. You're not rejecting it. If you're rejecting it and like, I ain't got time for that. You said I would be at peace and I don't have to keep, dealing with people because I don't like people. You don't have the correct insight. You're not on board with it and can't use you. Who are you? It's not about your will. So you answered the call so God can give you your will? No, he changes your desires. So even if that's not what you want to do, how many times you've heard people say things like that either they ran from their call or their calling is something they would have never chose? You hear people say that all the time. You hear people say that all the time because it's not your will. When you answer the call and you get in alignment and you start moving towards where you feel God is calling you, if you're in alignment with it, even if that's not a desire of yours, he will start to change your desire. Your desires start to change. This is why some of you, a male is coming up in particular, I don't know why, but some of you never had a desire to get married. And I mean, you were stuck on that thing because, you never saw it done correctly. You just were traumatized from it or whatever. And now you're starting to feel like, and it's not because you're getting old. It's because God is changing your desires because You answered the call, and he may have not put the marriage into your desire at the time. You just started going towards purpose. So now you're working towards purpose. Now he needs to bring you the helpmate. That making sense? So your promise still is. When God gave me that download about delayed but not denied, he gave me the vision of pastors. Okay, let's take during the pandemic time, when that pandemic first hit. Okay, I'm sure most, if not all, pastors, when they answered the call to be a pastor or bishop or whatever, that their desire was to have a very, very large flock, right? Because sometimes, especially if you're a visionary, God shows you the vision first, which is usually, boom, grand, right? And at that point, you're just so, you ain't got to pot the piston. So you got to work your way up to the vision itself. So all these years of toiling, trying to get people to fill their church. They could have been having fish fries, trying to get people up in there. Was that why they do fish fries? No, I think that's to bring money in. But either which way, they're trying to like run advertisements. They're trying to go to other churches to try to just whatever, right? So they're trying everything in their flesh because God told them, let it be through a vision or through a prayer or whatever, God told them that they would have a church that has 5,000 people. God told them that, but they can't get past 50. But they stayed committed to the 50, right? Even though they might have been moaning and groaning. Listen, it is what it is. We're human. So they may have been doing that thing, let's just say, for 10, 15 years. I'm just throwing numbers out here. But God told them they would have 5,000 people. God told them that. That's the promise. That's destiny for them. You will have 5,000 people. But every day you're looking around for years and years and you 50, 50, 50, 50. Every Sunday, 50, 50, 50, 50. Then boom, the pandemic happened. Now you got none. So with promises, this is why you can't go with what things look like in the physical realm. Because a lot of the times before major breakthroughs, all hell breaks loose and things look the complete opposite of the promise. So, okay, you got people who are now sitting at home, still trying to hold church services, let it be outside. Remember how they were doing, like, a lot of pastors were doing like the outside church services or whatever, and you would still have a couple of people come or whatever, but it's still not the 5,000 God promised them, but they kept being faithful even in the struggle, which is really the process of to the promise. Then boom, God started giving some of them downloads about social media. Didn't even know if it would work, but obedient to the convictions. This is why you must be obedient to convictions, regardless if you think it makes sense, regardless if you think whatever you think. It doesn't matter. If God is telling you to do something, you got to do it. So now many of them started doing it, let it be just from conviction on their own or from just seeing other pastors do it, whatever the case. And some of them, boom, massive explosion. God told you long ago that you would have 5,000 people in your church. That's what he told you, right? That's the promise. That's the promise. You kept seeing 50, but you kept preaching for 15 years to 50. That's obedience. That's sacrifice. The pandemic happened, right? Of course, that's warfare. That's all that stuff is going to equate to everything looking left in the physical realm. How many people would stop right there? How many pastors do you think stopped right there and never went back? How many pastors do you think ignored the conviction and like, I'm not learning that by no social media, right? I'm 84 over here. Social media. Well, I guess God just want me to retire. Missed their whole destiny because they gave up. You got to give God something to work with through convictions, through obedience. Now you have pastors who have exceeded the promise of the 5,000. Now you see why I keep saying we keep thinking so small? So you said God told you 5,000. Maybe God did say 5,000, or maybe God told you just to keep it open. God may have said 50,000, but because you thought 50,000 was just too big and you could never achieve, maybe you knocked it down to 5,000. But now you've exceeded that. But remember, God's promises is always bigger than our own. So now, let's go back. God gave the promise, 5,000 church members. He kept his promise. Didn't change. You got 50,000 now watching you on social media. But he didn't tell you it would be a pandemic, right? He didn't tell you the 5,000 or whatever number he told you, whatever you cap or didn't cap. He told you you would have it. That's his promise. But it didn't happen in the church building that you thought. You were out there making fish fries. You were out there passing out flyers. You were out there going on maybe radio stations and telling people to, hey, come, we have an Easter Sunday, such and such, blase, 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 blase. And you're frustrated because the stuff never took off. Or even if it did, it only was a few people. And now you're frustrated with God. But like, I don't understand, God. Why would you tell me I'm going to have 5,000 people and I've been doing this, but I only see 50? But he never told you the 5,000 would be in your church building. He only gave you the promise of 5,000. So you see how God will give you the details, but not the directions. We as people, we keep seeking for details. Oh, it's going to happen this way. It's going to happen that way. No. It's going to happen a way that you could have never even thought. I promise you. Everything that, being the visionary, everything that God has shown me, it is. I promise you, it is. But I can't think of one thing that happened from the way I thought it would. It happened, but it was way left. There were storms along the way. Oh, it happened. But God wouldn't be God if he allowed us to have details and directions. Could you imagine if God gave us power or grace to make our own directions? Honey, we would be so messed up. So that download came clear as day in the vision of trying to demonstrate it from like a physical place of the church and the pastors, et cetera, or whatever. I can't even, that was spirits. So I don't even know what I say, but however it ironed out is what God needs you to receive. The promise still is. So you're delayed, like many people were in the pandemic, but you're not denied. So now that there's movement again, slowly but surely, expect a acceleration. It's going to take off. And when it takes off, you got to be prepared for it. This is why God have us to learn so much stuff right now in this waiting season. Because when those doors open, honey, you're going to be asking God for a break. But now you're like, oh, I'm bored. Where's God? Where's God? Everything's so slow. Everything's so quiet. Honey, when them doors open, honey, you're going to be so busy. And these doors are about to open. Clear as day. You guys have a great one. It's your girl, Kizzy Rock.